Welcome back to another episode of the Brotherly Love podcast. Today we have a very special guest who at the age of 27 became completely financially free 4 times in the Australia's 30 under 30 charts, and he's now about to embark on a magical journey around Australia in his big ass truck, sitting outside truck caravan. Awesome. Please welcome our special guest of the day, Peter. Welcome. Really happy to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, just super stoked. We met Peter obviously a long time ago through Brotherhood and just inspired by what you've achieved, man. Like, how old are you now?
34.
34 years old and just killing it. You know what I mean? Just an awesome lifestyle. I think anyone who goes to, hang out at your place, and it's just very inspiring. So really happy to have you on. And obviously we're just going to dive straight into that today. I think it's just awesome. And we'll welcome our Guy Anderson.
G'day.
Welcome. And myself, Cato Sipthorpe, doing the hosting today. So yeah, man, just thanks so much for coming on.
Enlighten us, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
Just have the fucking mic.
Yeah.
What would you like to know?
Dude, where did it start?
Yeah,
how Peter Moriarty that sits in this chair today, how was he built? How was he made? Who is Peter Moriarty?
Yeah.
Who is Peter Moriarty? Yeah, good question. The journey's been interesting. I was a kidpreneur and was starting businesses when I was young. So I was that kid in high school selling porn magazines, selling burnt CDs, always kind of running a side hustle. And
still a pimp today.
Still working on that. Eventually I got to the stage where I was pretty good with computers. I enjoyed them. Funnily enough, I started in a Steiner school, so I had no TV, no computers or anything like that growing up. But then my parents ended up divorcing. My stepdad had a computer. I was pretty excited to jump into the tech space and started helping out friends and family. By 15, I decided I don't want to work at McDonald's like my friends are, but I can put flyers in people's letterboxes, start a little consulting business. And that's basically what I did. I rode my push bike to my clients' houses. I lived in a rural area in Sydney and eventually scaled that business up. By the time I finished high school, I was doing $30,000 a year on the side in my side gig.
In year 12?
In year 12, yeah. I did 30,000 on the side in year 12.
Imagine that, all the boys rocking up to school with lunch money and you're just like, yeah, I can probably buy the whole tuck shop.
Yeah, we had a few good days at the tuck shop, actually. Yeah, it was pretty good. After that, I decided, business is my path. I won't bother going down, the university route. And back then, it wasn't popular to be an entrepreneur. There was no Gary V's, there were no, alpha motivation channels on Instagram or anything like that. None of that existed. So choosing the path of entrepreneurship was a contrarian path.
Wow.
But I knew I had it within me. I need to go into business. And so that's what I did. And yeah, effectively that tech consulting business, I scaled. It went through different iterations as it grew, different niches, different specialties, different services. Still running now. The brand is called IT Genius. That's the main business. And along the way, it's been a pretty interesting journey, but it's been about 20 years of business now.
Isn't that cool? I just think, now being an entrepreneur is something that's like, it's the thing to do. It's almost like it's cool, So there's a lot of energy around it. What made you want to step away from having a job, or was it accidental?
Yeah, well, I've never had a job, so there wasn't anything to step away from.
Yeah. What made if I was in year 12 and I was earning $30K and I did it by myself, I think I'd probably be going, I can go out into the world and do it by myself. You know what I mean? Like, what was the precursor to going, I'm going to just make money through my own skills, Was it a family background, or was it, what push did you get? Because you didn't have the Gary V's, you didn't have the, those like alpha motivation things that you had now. So what was it for you?
Look, I think partly it was in my genes. And so, when I was 6 years old, my brother and I were living on, not living on the street, but on the street where we were living with our parents. We had this letterbox up the road, and they basically had all these nice little coloured stones in the letterbox. And we worked out that if we got those stones and we smashed them open on the pavement, they'd have little like crystals inside them. So we took our little like trolley up the road, one of those kids' trolleys. We took it up the road, stole all of the stones out of their letterbox, feature letterbox garden, and brought them back, smashed them all on the pavement. We had our crystals and we set up a little market table on the side of the road. And then we just like flagged down cars as they were coming past, and it'd be like 50 cents for a big stone, 20 cents for a little stone. That was at 6. My brother was 5.
Fuck.
So there was some kind of entrepreneurial gene that just exists within me to do that at 6 years old without much, nurturing or particular input from my parents. But, then as I grew up, I had other little hustles and whatnot. And my parents split up. That was pretty rocky in the home. And quite often what I've observed is, having known many, many entrepreneurs, having worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of business owners, plenty of children who come from adverse childhood experiences will go on to be an entrepreneur because they want to have control of their life. They, if they've been in a position where they're disempowered, they want to feel more empowered, or they want to feel they have a say.
Interesting.
Or maybe it was mum and dad set silly rules and I want to be able to live my own life making my own rules. Maybe it's someone bullied me at school, and so therefore I want to feel like I'm the top dog, right? So there's always kind of like undercurrents that can run. For me, home was a little bit unstable. And so for me, it was like, okay, cool. Well, if my parents aren't adulting, then I'll adult myself. And so it was like, all right, I'll go kind of make my own money. That was part of it. I wouldn't say that was all of it. I also had different influences. And so my parents split up. They both remarried. My stepdad is a pretty keen investor, and he had all of Robert Kiyosaki's books on the bookshelf. And so around about 14 or 15, I read a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the classic. And at that point, I decided, oh, wow, if I actually want to build wealth, if I want to build real money and real freedom for myself, I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm not going to do it through working a job for someone else. My path is going to be building a business. Now, that's not saying that that's the only path for everyone in the world. Everyone's got their own path. For me, the path of entrepreneurship really resonated with me. And at that point, I decided I'm just going to go and do this. And so that was then my mission, to build a successful business, build wealth. I decided when I was at school, I'm going to work through my 20s. I'll work my absolute ass off so I can enjoy my 30s and the rest of my life. And I remember even in high school sitting in a class with our teacher, and everyone was going around the room. The teacher had asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what do you want to be when you're 30 years old? Where do you want to be in life? And, some people were saying, oh, I want to have a family, or I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a race car driver, or whatever that looked like to a certain person. They came around to me and I said, I want to be retired. That was my very clear goal. For me, I want to have financial freedom where all of my expenses are taken care of. I don't have to yearn for anything financially, and I have the freedom and flexibility to live the life that I want to live. I had a specific goal, ended up hitting it around 27, 28 years old, where I was location independent, time independent, and money independent. And those three were like the big ticks for me. And what that's allowed me to do is, yes, have plenty of free time and travel and holidays, and have plenty of time not doing any occupational style work, but also move more into purpose work. So community service, impact initiatives, being able to more fully participate in mentoring and coaching and supporting other entrepreneurs, especially those that are up and coming. And so that's the shift that I was able to make after I've optimized for income, and my income is now taken care of pretty much for the rest of my life. My shift has now been to, well, how can I have more impact on the world, on my communities, on the people around me? And how can I live in a space of abundance where I get to share what I've built for myself with those around me, both in my close friend circles, but also in community as well.
Wow, there's a couple questions in there. Wow, a few loaded questions. Man, that's super.
Can I ask,
exciting.
how comfortable are you in revealing your wealth?
Sure.
When you say income that can sustain me a lifetime, let's go. What do you like monthly? What would do you like? Base it on a monthly thing or an annual?
Yeah, it's approaching 7 figures per year. Of income. The business group does nearly 10 million a year in recurring revenue. That's growing steadily, which is great. My net from that is approaching 7 figures. And primarily that is reinvested into assets that will then produce more value. At this time I've got a number of businesses that produce income streams, and then I also have more passive assets, property, equities, those kind of things that also produce dividends and additional income as well.
And thank you for sharing that as well, because I believe there's sometimes like a shameful thing about, I don't want people to know how much wealth I make, or how much income I earn, because it comes from a competitive standpoint of, once they have it, it means they're going to try and get after it or something like that. And I feel like you and yourself, that kind of ties into my next question was, as a man of affluence, how do you, on an axis of self-worth to financial worth, is there a linear correlation there, or how have you seen it for yourself?
Yeah, so that's certainly been an interesting journey, because it's undeniable that wealth and income is intrinsically linked as a social ranking system in our current culture.
Correct.
And so it's inescapable. I'm very happy to be out camping or traveling in my truck and not necessarily need the external trappings of wealth for myself to be content. Yet, when I walk into a networking event or a business dinner and I show up in a particular kind of car, or I'm wearing a particular kind of watch, I'll be treated differently because of that social signaling. And so there's this interesting interplay between the trappings of wealth and the external pieces of wealth being both meaningless and meaningful at the same time. So meaningful to some people, meaningless as well. And when you understand that, when you know that, you can kind of you can play with it, which is pretty interesting. Now this is a $50,000 watch. It's an Omega Speedmaster, and it's gold and it'll hold value as well. And, when I bought it, it was a celebration for myself and a bit of a milestone of exiting my business. I'm no longer the CEO. Someone else is running it, even though I'm still the primary shareholder.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And when I bought that, it was really interesting. I sat down with one of my mentors and I was like, oh, wow, this is a bit of a freak out. It's a bit of a wild thing. Like, I've just spent all this money on this watch for myself. And, how does that change who I am? I'm now someone who wears a watch like this. And so there's some identity shifts that start to happen as the external trappings start to change.
Right.
But stop judging yourself potentially. There's that.
For sure.
How can I wear this while still feeling, while still knowing I'm worthy of this and that I've earned this and that's okay. And
correct.
People's perception of me may change. However, I'm still complete.
And can I enjoy it without it defining me?
Yeah. Correct.
Without needing this for the ego identification, but can I also enjoy it, that I gave myself that?
It's interesting because it becomes more than an anchor of, yes, I achieved that. It really does become an anchor of status, status and as well, for sure.
Yeah.
All those things.
So I sat down with a mentor and we were having a discussion about the watch, and she said to me, well, you haven't actually spent $50,000 on a watch. All you've done is you've taken $50,000 of value that was in your bank account and you're now wearing it on your wrist. The value is still with you. You haven't spent anything. You haven't lost or gained anything. It's just changed form.
Yeah, right. Changed form. Isn't that
correct?
Interesting?
Yeah. So there's all those interesting conundrums with with wealth and external trappings. There was a period certainly where I equated wealth as a social ranking system, or wealth as a measure of value for somebody's personality, and that's from a place of judgment, right? And the most interesting thing for me to deconstruct that was, as I was traveling, and we have a large team in the Philippines, and I've spent heaps of time in the Philippines, been back and forward 20 odd times, and we built a team there. Now, obviously, vastly different economies. Australia is one of the richest economies in the world by medium household income and wealth and everything else, all these other markers, right? And then spending time in a developing country, very, very different economy, very, very different pay scales. But the actual livability for the country for most people is pretty similar. Someone will spend about 30 to 40% of their income on their rent. Someone has, if they're working in a professional job, enough income to be able to support themselves and support a small family as well. They can buy a motorbike or a car just like we can. You go to the bank, you get finance, and then you purchase that. And even though the pay rate might be a fifth of what the Australian salary is, it's an economy that then still works. And so I had to reconcile, as I built an amazing team in the Philippines, as I had, relationships and friends and experienced culture with a vastly, vastly different economic reality, the bridge that I had to build for myself was, if there are these very different income levels, if there are these very different wealth levels, that's actually disconnected to who someone is as a person. Because someone can exist in a completely different space. And it's very easy to judge, within our country. We're in a pretty egalitarian society in Australia. There aren't really, different kind of classes or whatnot. But we can certainly walk down the street and, there's a difference between someone driving a Commodore with Steelies on the back and someone driving a Mercedes, right? There is a difference in income level, and, you can bring in all kinds of judgment about who that human is and what life choices that human makes. It was a curious journey, having now a very international business, being exposed to other cultures, being exposed to other economies, how that kind of normalized and gave me the opportunity to start to drop some of those judgments and explore that as well. What does that look like, and how can I be in a state of love and peace and non-judgment with whoever I'm experiencing, no matter what ideas I have about the economy or the culture or the country that they're from.
That's interesting, because I would have a perception of, if I had a certain amount of wealth in this country and then all of a sudden I'm going to another country where they are 5 times lower than that of the average over here, it would automatically, for a untrained wealth mind, to go, well, they are even more, I want to say,
give yourself superiority.
Yeah, you're putting yourself on this even bigger pedestal, and I suppose it would come to a point where you're going, oh, well, I actually can't do that now. It's like, that's actually completely unethical, because they're still the same. They've still got, like you said, an economy that works, a family system that works. Everything still works, and in some cases, maybe even better. And what do I have that can judge them? What, because I have even more money back in my country compared to what they have here because of a currency exchange? That's a massive perception change. What was the most noticeable or most difficult part of that switch?
I think it was realizing that it was a projection. And so, where I was projecting someone with a different income to me is different to me, the link that I had made for myself is, I'm worthy when I have wealth. And as soon as I let go of my own judgment of myself, I'm worthy when I have wealth, then I was able to let go of the judgment of everyone else. They're wealthy. They're worthy when they have wealth.
Isn't it interesting to even get to that perception, though? You do need to have wealth to even make that switch.
Yes.
It's like you get to wealth and then you make the new mindset of, I actually need to let go of that.
And Jim Carrey has that beautiful quote, I wish everyone in the world could become rich and famous so they can realize that's not it. And it's absolutely true. And it's not until I had all the money that I'd ever need for the rest of my life. I have all the toys and all the bits and pieces and all the external traffics. It's not until I got that I could kind of see the perspective of having both. And often when I think about integration, I think about like a pendulum swinging. And there's extremes on either end of a pendulum, right? And maybe you've in the context of wealth, you've experienced extreme poverty, or you've experienced extreme lack of wealth. But to understand where the integration is, you kind of need to swing all the way to the other side. And when you've experienced all the way on the other end of the spectrum, then you understand, okay, cool, I now have the perspective with the polarity of each different extreme. I can understand where the middle is and where the integration is.
In terms of a metric, because you said you need to, for perspective and stuff, like to be able to wager yourself as wealthy, where did that metric lie for you? Like, at what point did you define yourself? Oh, I'm wealthy now. I'm of wealth.
My goal was to earn $250,000 a year in fairly passive income. And that's what I hit when I was 27-ish. And you did say you were that's enough to live really, really well. If you wanted to eat at restaurants every night, travel multiple months of the year. I mean, the time freedom is important to get right as well. Like if you're working 80 hours a week and earning $250, that's not a great life. So you got to have the time in check as well. But that's an income level which is, it's pretty silly. but you're effectively living, really, really good. Yeah, and that may be, if you're in a family unit, that may be median household income, right? That could also work as well if you wanted to. People have numbers of net assets and liquid assets and that kind of thing, but it kind of gets complicated because different assets you can divest faster than others. Like our tech businesses are probably worth 10 million, but we would have to find a buyer and we'd have to not fuck it up between now and selling it, right? So that's kind of like paper money that's not necessarily able to be realized.
Yeah, it seems like this recurring thing is having it passively, having it residually. It's not just the amount of money you get; it's that time that you get back from it as well. Because you're right. Earning 250K a year, that's awesome. But if you don't have any time to spend it, what's the point? You may as well earn 75K a year and have complete time freedom. Because at least when you have 75K a year, you can spend a bit over a K a week, and no problem.
You want to take your income and divide it by the number of hours that you work. And that really gives you like your effective hourly rate in what you're earning as a net per hour that you're working. And so like my businesses, I've got them down to, if I want to, I can just work half an hour a week. That's a couple of meetings half a day a week. That's a couple of meetings with some of my teams, check in on the execs, check in on the strategy, and that's about it. I enjoy presenting a YouTube channel, so I do that. I enjoy being invested in new upstart businesses, so I do that. I enjoy mentoring other business owners and entrepreneurs, so I do that. So I choose to spend my time working about 2 to 3 days a week. That's a good kind of like amount for me. And then I have 4-day weekends, which give me lots of time for either activities, strategic thinking time, creative time, basically doing whatever I want. And, typically the wheels are then turning about business anyway, and I'll bring those fresh ideas back into the team. But operationally, I try and keep it 2 to 3 days a week, earning lots of money, lots of freedom. That's a good setup for me.
And you said that as well, because you said you've reached at 27, you sort of reached that part where you were, bringing in that passive income, and then you shifted, and it talks about like at the pyramid of like hierarchy, and there's self-actualization right at the top, and then I can't remember who it was from, but I learned there's a higher precipice than that, and it's actually shared actualization. And it's like that's when you become into this. That's that real God shit. When you now are at the capacity to be able to help facilitate others to shift up the.
I think that's a natural progression as well. Yeah. It's like once you become so good at something and you've reached the peaks of it, it's pretty hard to go, what more is there when I'm standing at the top? I'm kind of lonely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's like that. And you said like now your focus has shifted towards impact. It's like, how can I help people to leverage up to feel where I am now, and like the comfort in behind that? Because I know that down the lower level of hierarchy is like you're just trying to meet the bare necessities for survival, and that's whether it's shelter, food, water, power and stuff like that. It's like as soon as you can move out of that, where you're no longer stuck in that sort of system, then you can start to broaden your horizons, and you can start to see where you're actually going to be able to generate more wealth for yourself, because you're no longer in that scarcity mindset of just purely fighting for the day-to-day necessities.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head that many people will be in survival mode for a long time, and many people don't get out of survival mode with their wealth. Or if they do, it's not only until they retire, but our generation.
How do people get out of survival mode?
Yeah.
Well, it's receiving and building more income than you have outgoings. Doesn't necessarily have to be on a passive basis, completely passive, because nothing's completely passive. Even if you've got 10 rental properties and they're all earning X amount per month, you still have maintenance and upkeep and property management, the other bits and pieces, and sourcing property, buying property, selling property. Nothing is completely passive, but you can have income streams that are very, very low maintenance. But getting out of survival mode is having more than you need. The median savings for Australian households is actually only $6,000
a year.
No, total $6,000. Most people only hold about $6,000 of savings. That's the average across Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's not really enough emergency money. It's not really enough if you need to buy a car or something else for the family. And so for those
that blows my mind.
Yeah, that's actually not a lot of money at all.
No.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, so that's the free and available cash. In savings accounts. So For many people, they're just expanding lifestyle when the income is expanding. That's super common. But to get out of survival, you need to have income in excess of what you're spending. And then you're able to, put that into more leveraged assets, build up your investments and build up other income streams. Yeah. That's just step one. As you progress through the different levels and okay, cool, then you've got a successful business, and then you get into the kind of capitalist mindset of being able to invest in businesses and invest in other ventures. You've got a diversified portfolio as well over time. Eventually, yes, you start moving towards, okay, I have everything I need, plus I'm set up for life. That's the next level, right? I've got everything I need, plus I'm pretty good for life. Cool. The final step is then moving to impact. Many people don't actually move out of that second step. It's just better Ferrari, bigger business, more money, more luxury holidays.
I can imagine that's when people can get pretty sad.
Correct.
That's
Absolutely.
aligned with our purpose as well, because that's when they're still in a competitive mindset. It's me. It's greed.
Correct.
Rather than the ability to be collaborative and share it.
Yeah,
Correct.
and that's a skill.
And it is. And it's like, and then when you said that could be a sad thing, it's of course.
Yeah, imagine being
Why
at
is
the
there
top
such a high depression rate?
and being fuck, I just can't do anything more. This is it. I've got nothing to do. I'm just going to try and fill my ego and feel better and better about myself every day by buying this and buying that and fueling.
Life feels good in service to others. It feels good when you're in service to others. And so, when you're building a company, you are in service to others. You're creating jobs. You're creating abundance.
Yes.
Maybe you're creating abundance for your family, creating abundance for, your customers or whoever you're working with.
Yeah.
That's really great. But at some point, and this is my opinion, at some point, those who amass wealth have a responsibility to distribute that accordingly in service of our community. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to move to some kind of, completely socialist or, communist type, everyone shares every resource. But those who have the skill and the acumen to actually amass that wealth, it means, okay, what can you do with your skills or your resources? Not necessarily throwing dollars out the door, but what can you do with your skills and your resources to support others and support community to thrive? Because it is a sad existence, just building more and more and more and more for yourself, because the enjoyment runs out, the dopamine runs out,
and inadvertently it'll potentially lead you to more wealth.
Yes,
than you would have received otherwise by being a selfish pig.
Yeah,
potentially. But I love what you're saying. It's you're collaborating for a greater society. You're lifting the vibration of the planet rather than because your vibration's not going anywhere. If you continue to get all this wealth and still feel like shit.
Yeah.
It's you're just contributing to the whole, the sum of the whole.
It's once you get to the top, the next mountain is how much, you have serviced yourself completely. You've taken care of yourself. And it's you get to the top of that triangle, self-actualization, and you're right. Then it's you've got that whole other mountain. And at the top of that mountain, it's shared actualization. And I think you've got to go through the whole learning phase of how can you learn to best pull other people up as well.
Correct.
So what would you suggest to people who are listening and they are maybe feeling that lacking mindset? And I know you said that obviously earn more money than you're spending, which is, I think, a very simple but excellent tip that I think everyone can do.
Some people get the money, they start earning more money, they start spending more money. They
we all do.
Yeah.
They all do.
Yeah. What would you suggest that people do? That doesn't matter the age, but sort of if you look back at your own process, what would you suggest that people can start doing? What's another action step? Because I think, earning more money could also mean saving more. You know what I mean? Not saving more, not spending as much as well. What are some action steps that you could give some people?
I think the most important thing is up here.
Yeah.
And I think probably what gets the most leverage is shifting mindset and beliefs around wealth, around money. And, our culture demonizes tall poppies. Our culture demonizes the guy who's driving the nice flash car. Our culture demonizes anyone who wants to show off their wealth. And that's a sad thing about Australian culture, I think, that we don't celebrate those who accumulate wealth. I think that's just a lack mentality in general. And so, first of all, working on your mindset around Do I have any ideas about what a wealthy person is or what a wealthy person looks like? Do I have any ideas about, the bad things that wealthy people might do? Do I have any ideas about how wealthy people got to how they became wealthy? Do I have any ideas about money itself and whether that's good or bad or what that looks like? Have I taken on the stories of my family? Have I taken on the stories of my friends? That's most important to deconstruct.
Beliefs, okay.
Shifting and changing those beliefs. Because when you've got those running, those stories in your subconscious, you'll never go and do it. And the tribe that you are around will hold you accountable to those beliefs. They're the ones that are actually going to either promote or detract from where you want to go and what your values are.
That is very, very true.
Super, super basic. On a more practical level, when you're aligned to your vision, you're aligned to your values, you're aligned to your goals, all of the actual resource building just happens naturally. And so if you find what your genius zone is, whether that's leading people, whether that's creating something, whether that's promoting something, whether that's selling something, whatever your genius zone is, when you place yourself in your genius zone, rather than your focus being on, I want to make X number of dollars or I want to create a bunch of money or build XYZ resources, if your focus is on, let me just focus on creating value for people, you will naturally have wealth follow you. It can't help but follow you. And if you find out for yourself, what are you the best in the world at, or what can you be the best in the world at, or maybe not go for the world. Start with what can I be the best in my city at? What can I be the best in my country at? You then get to choose your path and the wealth will just follow your path. Because like when you shine your brightest in your lane, in what works for you, based on your particular makeup and your particular unique set of values and experiences and interests, then you're going to find something that's really, really valuable. You go create that value, money will just flow to you.
And that is such a conflicting belief for people who've grown up their whole life going, well, but I only get paid from a job. How can I get paid from adding value where I think I'm most valuable? Because I think I'm a really good singer, for example, and I don't do that because, I get paid to make good coffees for my store. Like, that is a huge jump. And I think it was so good for you because you never had the job. You never had a job. You could go out and it was like, I'm going to work for myself. And for people who's in their 30s and 40s, the disbelief in what they can achieve just mounts up and it becomes, that's only for special people.
What you shared before was absolutely brilliant, by the way. Like, I just want to give you some acknowledgement there. That was really fucking well articulated and it just made so much sense, I reckon. So if you were listening and I'd recommend playing that back because that is... really well done, and I think it provides a lot of
value.
Yeah,
well, there you go.
Yeah, and but also like inspiration. Hey, like you can do it. You just got to look into what you've been told, and then this is how you can rewrite it for yourself. Yeah.
The number one thing, and it's simple but challenging to execute for some, and that is giving yourself permission to live the life of your dreams and have the life of your dreams. Giving yourself permission to be your fullest expression of yourself and giving yourself permission to go and chase your dreams. Now, I'm not an expert in NLP or, any of the kind of like the bits and pieces of going and do that. You can go to Tony Robbins or, you can read a book or maybe you go and meditate under a tree and you have that, that insight and that mindset shift. But that's the key thing is allowing yourself that permission. And that can have layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of conditioning to work through. You will need to move through that conditioning. But once you've moved through that conditioning, you give yourself permission to go out there and shine and do your thing. Great. The rest of it can just follow.
Can I ask a question I've never thought about before? Is there a world where everyone can be an entrepreneur?
Sorry?
Is there a world where everyone can be an entrepreneur?
Well, I think there's a world where everyone can be self-leading. There's two states of being in the world. One state is I'm just a recipient of what the world throws at me. I'm a victim to the world, or I'm at effect of things going on around me. The other way of being in the world is I'm the cause. I'm at cause. I'm empowered, and I'm able to shape my life. Now, it doesn't mean that I get to play God and, like I can change the color of the paint on the walls here, although if I tried hard enough, maybe. But the reality is that our mindset and our mentality when we wake up each day can either be the world is happening to me, or I'm happening to my life and I'm happening to the world. And that little shift in perspective is enough to create value in your life, to chase after your dreams, to have the things that you want to have. And so I don't really define life as entrepreneurship or not entrepreneurship, because you could be an intrapreneur, or you could use those same qualities that exist in most entrepreneurs, which are, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to have a crack at this. I'm going to pull together and find the resources and try and make this happen. I'm going to be bold where, where others maybe are just following the plan or following the crowd. That is a different way of being in the world, not just in entrepreneurship. Those qualities are found in entrepreneurship, but you could exude those values and exude those qualities in anything that you're doing.
It's interesting. Being an entrepreneur really just means living life at cause. Like,
indeed, yeah.
That's, I can't really think of anything else it would really be. If you're at effect, I just imagine if you look at all the qualities of someone who lives a job and not lives a job at, because they choose, but lives a job at effect. Oh, I have to work to pay the bills. I have to do this. I have to. Whereas an entrepreneur is like, I get to do this opportunity. I think it's massively at cause. And I think that the reason entrepreneurialism is so scary is because it challenges so many beliefs that so many people hold.
Well, you have to step in a cause. 99% of entrepreneurs are operating in cause. Not everyone else in the world is. Some people are. But that's a commonality between entrepreneurs. Most people are operating at cause. There are some that are operating at effect. But that's the thing, And entrepreneurship is the greatest personal development journey you can go on because every idea is challenged. Every time you grow and have more success, you actually need to leave the old you behind. So it's these constant ego deaths, constant shedding, constant growth. And every time you get to a certain point, and if you stop growing for a moment, then you immediately plateau in your results. And so there's a number of what I call entrepreneurial muscles. And one of the entrepreneurial muscles is the ability to grow and let go of the old past, your old versions of yourself. And you just need to get good at that. And the first few times it happens, it's really hard. It's like doing your first rep with a dumbbell, right? Or your first few pull-ups. The first few times you do it, it freaking hurts. And then the next week you can't walk, or you can't brush your teeth properly because you've hurt yourself so much, right? And that's like stepping out of a job into your first side hustle. Or it's like, just launching your first website or your first Instagram account to get a business off the ground. That's that first rep, and it sucks.
That is so true.
But over time it gets easier and easier and easier and easier until it's so easy that it's just, and the way that you guys will work on yourselves in your fitness, and I watch that and I go, oh my God, wow, look at these guys go and how they're working out. There are certain areas of my business where I'm like that. I launched a mentoring, a mentoring business, and I launched it with a Google form and made $200,000 and that's the run rate, $200,000 a year run rate in about 3 months. It was really easy to do. It took me about 10 hours of work to spin that up. And, to be able to be in a place of that abundance. I have another automotive business that I got involved in that's already doing $400,000 a year, and I've spent about 5 hours in that business since January 1. And we've spun that up from nearly scratch. It's just building on the muscles.
I've watched you build that from that Google Sheet, running a thing and saying, hey, I'm going to teach some people how to do some systems. And I think there's about 3 or 4 guys on Brotherhood that have jumped on it. Myself, I was fucking itching at it, but anywho. And I can just hold so much gratitude for you within launching that program, because I've seen each and every day how all 4 of those guys go, the value I'm receiving from that. Because when some people hear, he's made $200,000 off, he's made $200,000 off some of my friends, and he's talking about it like it's just like, he's done that.
Mindset
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, that's a mindset thing as well. It's like, where are you? Because even in knowing, like, if, for example, Yella is one of the guys that's on it, he won't mind me mentioning him, and like he could hear, the amount that you have earned from the coaching that you are running, and then go, oh my God, I've got that. But that he will be going, he earns every fucking bit of that because the amount of value he's provided for my life, good on him. And he's teaching me how I too can like do something like that. It's like, it's a real mindset thing. And so if you're listening and it's like, you know where you view someone for speaking on how much money they make from something or something, and you go, oh, fuck, he doesn't deserve that or something. It's like, maybe you need to look into yourself a little bit more, and like, where can you find the gratitude for someone who is doing that so that you too can hold the same vibration, earn that for yourself as well.
It's all return on investment. And, in any, business or like particularly, coaching containers, people can do maths. You can work out how many people are in there. You can work out what the program cost is, and you know what someone's earning in revenue, not always profit,
yes,
in
correct.
revenue
That's
from a business. But, then, when you are participating in a program like that, you've got to look at, okay, what am I investing and what am I receiving? What's the return on investment on what I'm receiving? I didn't go to university, but I've spent probably $500,000 on masterminds, coaching, mentors, and everything else. Yeah. And over that time, I'd always look at that and say, okay, well, I might be spending $20,000 a year with this particular mentor at the moment. What am I going to receive from this? Well, could I increase my sales in the business, or could I increase my gross profit in the business by $20,000 over the course of the year and subsequent years based on what I'm going to learn in the next 12 months with this person? Yeah, absolutely. Cool. That's an easy equation for me. And that's entrepreneurship, right? It's like, what can I spend? What will I receive? And managing the return on investment through allocation of capital to different areas. And that's all we're doing. The main difference between entrepreneurs and someone working in a job and then just building wealth passively through something like property is the ability to handle risk. Correct. And the appetite for risk. Yeah. Because entrepreneurship is just going into a very, 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 very risky business. It's just going into a very risky, very volatile, lots of variables to manage.
The amount of suffering right at the beginning where you're just constantly knocked down, but you know that the failures, that's where the growth is incurred, because you keep getting knocked down and you just hold that adversity, you hold that
and
frame
you've got
of
to
mind,
step into that new person now. It's like
Correct.
The old person where they would have stepped away. You've got to go, fuck, I've decided to step into this new person now. I have to hold this person's belief, and they don't give up. And that's uncomfortable.
And there's another really great quote by Steve Jobs, which is that you've got to be a bit nuts, like you've got to be a bit crazy, because any sane person would give up. Any sane person would just give up. And the numbers are really simple when you look at it. If you say, for example, you've got $100,000 and you go and throw it into an index fund, maybe you get 6 or 7%, over a long period of time, return on the market. If you're into property, okay, good return is what's that, 8, 9, 10, a little bit more percentage points when you factor in things like capital growth. Okay, cool. That's property. What about putting money into business? Well, you might get conservatively a 20% return on investment. When I spend money acquiring businesses, because I often buy businesses and we've used that methodology to basically scale up our company, I'm hoping to get 30, 40, 50% return on investment per annum on those businesses. Now, it's risky, takes a lot of skill, takes a little bit of eating shit sometimes, but that skill that I've now built in business itself allows me to accumulate more resources. And that's really the main difference. Entrepreneurship and building businesses is just a higher tolerance for risk, a higher tolerance for adversity, which is why it attracts the neurodivergent crowd, which is why it attracts the weirdos. It attracts the people that can't get a job anywhere else. It's great, cool. This is the playing field that you get to work on. And I'm not a massive fan of this quote, but living a few years of your life like no one will, so you can have the rest of your life living like no one can. That's the reality, basically. Like if you're willing to put in that effort and put in that energy, and you've got the smarts to do it as well, then you're going to be able to live in abundance, which is pretty cool.
Why don't you like that quote?
I don't like the quote because I don't believe hustle at all ends is a good way to live. There is a lot of hustle culture, which is like grind. And I've often toyed with the idea of, whether or not that grind is actually required. I'm in the luxurious position and the very privileged position of having done the grind, and I'm now sitting pretty, right? And I think it would be a bit remiss of me to say, oh, you don't have to hustle. Legit. You can just easily put up a Google form and make $200,000. But the reality is I've spent 20 years of grind and building and honing my skills and sharpening my sword and just working on this over and over and over and over again to build my skills to be able to make 200,000 off a Google form. And so, with that perspective in mind, yes, the hustle and the grit is required at the right time, but I like to express that you need to work hard and smart. Right. Just working hard is not actually going to serve you. It's hard and smart. And I know that's a bit airy-fairy to say that. It's not very, contextualized. but grinding yourself to the bone. Hustle is required, but you don't have to absolutely kill yourself. And as I was coming up, it became pretty clear to me what that actually looked like. If you put 5 things on your 5 fingers, one is looking after your body, one is looking after your nutrition, one is getting enough sleep, one is having a good relationship with family or an intimate partner, and number 5 is maybe having time with friends in social experiences or travel. Right? Pick 3. You get to have 3. And if you really want to throw yourself into something, you're going to have to make sacrifices. Maybe see your friends a little bit less. Maybe you don't travel for a while. For me, I gave up. I wanted to still travel. I wanted to still have time with my friends. I gave up my body nutrition. And that's where I ended up in an unhealthy place. Now, is that the right way? Is that the wrong way? I don't know. But what I do know is that I've had the journey that I've had, and I've built significant resources. So there are going to be sacrifices along the way. Or maybe you could keep all 5 of those, but you're not going to make as much money. Or you're not going to have the same
or it's going to be
abundance.
slower.
Or it's going to be slower. Time is another relative factor in there as well.
Yes.
So, I went to extremes, neglected 2 things. And then, after I had built up the wealth, I was smart enough to know, okay, like I've built the lifestyle, I've built the wealth, I've got more time, I've got more bandwidth now. Now I can circle back, start looking after my nutrition, start looking after my body.
Yes.
I did the weight loss journey, 45 kilos, smashed through all of that. That was really great to now look at, okay, I've swung the pendulum to different sides. Now what does integrated look like in the middle? And what does healthy look like for Pete? Aligned to my values, aligned to my goals and my dreams. Am I living in the fullest expression of myself? They're really the most important questions that I ask myself now.
That's interesting. I want to go back for a second and touch on something that we said earlier. Do you find that with every new evolution of yourself, you found yourself creating a different type of business or integrating a new type of business? Like if we are growing and you were saying you have to let go of the old version of yourself, could you use that as a business, for example? You grew one business and then it's like, okay, it's time to actually let go and step out of this business. I have to let that version of myself go. I'm going to step into something else.
It's more my roles in a business that have changed. The most basic levels of entrepreneurial journey were written about by Michael Gerber in a book called The E-Myth, which is a great book. But you start as a technician, which means you're delivering the service. Then you move up to a manager, meaning you're getting other people to deliver, but you're just managing the production. And then the third level is entrepreneur. And so entrepreneur is someone who's just creating value and you have other people working under you. But that entrepreneur is a bit airy-fairy. Most people would call themselves an entrepreneur, but they're still, in some way operationally involved in a business. And so entrepreneur is, let's call that a strategic role in a business. But after that, above that is you move to like an investor job. And so your job is just allocation of resources. And so I'm at the point now where my job is to sit on the board of the companies that I'm a part of, be a primary shareholder in the companies that I'm a part of. And for the most part, I'm coaching and training executives on how to run businesses well.
Because you've done the technician part, you've done the managerial part, you've done the entrepreneur part, and now you're sitting in entrepreneur investor, and you only need to drop down into entrepreneur. And when you're training people, you can even drop down into technician. But
absolutely.
The only way you can run a business so well is because you know and evolve through all those stages.
Yeah. Correct. And now it's just a choice.
No, you can't bypass. Isn't that interesting? You're right. So like for me, for example, I've been a bit confused about the definition of entrepreneur. While I believe I have entrepreneurial values on that definition, I wouldn't actually define myself at all as an entrepreneur because I'm still doing very much so the technician managerial sides of my business. I haven't got people running it yet.
Yeah.
And that's actually almost like a sigh of relief because I'm like, oh, okay, I do know my next step. And I think any entrepreneur,
it's like a forgiveness piece. It's like,
every aspiring entrepreneur wants to feel like they know the next step. And for me to be able to go, okay, yeah, this is where I'm at. Honestly, this is where I'm at. Boom. That's good. I like that.
The interesting thing there is, if you've launched it, you're an entrepreneur. Like someone who's taken together disparate resources and created value is an entrepreneur. But there is no shame in calling yourself a business owner because that's the reality of where you go. Right. After the birthing, you're now a business owner. You're operationally involved. You're managing the staff. You're making sure the product goes out the door. there is a fetishization of the word entrepreneur. It's something that's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm famous, right? And what do people imagine, with like a wheeler dealer entrepreneur? It's like they're just doing deals, they're, flying around in private jets and doing all the fun stuff, right? I've spent a lot of time with the entrepreneurs that are at very high level, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of value created, literally jumping on private jets, fly to an airport, land and do a deal in the airport, jump back on the private jet, fly back internationally, right? Cross Tasman flights. Wow. And so, I've seen those kind of deals happening. The reality is that it's never really the glitz and the glamour of how the TV shows show that entrepreneurs are. It's always a role that you need to play in those individual businesses. Right. And so right now, my day job is to be the chairman of the businesses that I'm involved in. What does that look like? Organizing the board reports, sitting in on the board meetings, spending time with the entrepreneurs, having, like counseling and support and coaching sessions with them. I take the emergency calls when they've got an emergency call. I tell this story often. Just a month ago, I was on an island in Malaysia, just did some scuba diving, about to jump on a flight. We had a little bit of a break, thankfully, between those two activities. But I'm just about to jump on a flight, and my CEO of one of our businesses called me and said, hey, we've got a problem with one of our suppliers. They haven't recognized all the payments that we've made them for the last 3 months, and they're going to cut off all of our customers. And they were going to cut off a couple of hundred of our customers. And so our customers would be without a critical business service. And they said, look, we need $200,000 to pay this vendor to keep them off our back so they don't switch our customers off. How are we going to deal with this? And, he's a capable CEO. So he said, okay, I've done this. Here's option 1, here's option 2, here's option 3. This is what I'm thinking about going with. So, he doesn't bring me problems. He brings me things he's working on. And he just wants my input on them. Yeah, it's not my call. He's the CEO. It's actually his call to do it.
Oh, that's fucking brilliant.
But I did actually have some input that I could give on the situation to help things out. I had a relationship with the CEO of this Silicon Valley startup. I was able to email that person and have, the right people talk to each other to help resolve it. Whether or not I was the missing piece in that, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The reality there is I'm just about to board a flight. I'm on an island in another country. My responsibility of being the chairperson for that business does not stop. And so the fetishized and idealized idea of like being an entrepreneur where everything's easy and you don't have any problems is completely false. You will have a much more flexible life. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had been diving. Great. I get to enjoy that pleasure, right? If I wanted to do zero work that week, I could do zero work that week. I enjoy that. But even with all of that freedom, I still have the responsibility. It's more money, more problems as well. That happens. Your problems go from like $1,000 problems to $10,000 problems to that was a $200,000 US problem. And it's fun to aspire to have a $10 million a year business, but your problems are $250,000 problems.
Correct.
And so that's just part of the game. If you're not ready for that, this is not for you, or you'll play at the level where you're comfortable with the problems that you can handle. One great bit of perspective is I go down the shops and I get a $100 parking ticket. I don't care because it's just not even on my radar of problems that will move the needle for me. And so that's a nice, I guess, way of being in the world with that perspective where, a friend of mine came to my house and I gave him a barbecue because it is... I'm moving out of this house. I don't need the extra barbecue. And, it's a $300 barbecue and a $50 gas bottle. It's something that I can just give to someone. And, people can like get a bit weird about that. Holy shit, Pete's just given me like $350 worth of gear. He's not asking anything for it in advance. Should I repay him back? Should I do something? But to be in a place of abundance is number one, because my problems are so much bigger. Like I'm very non-attached to that amount of, wealth or money. But number two, being in a place of abundance means that I'm okay to share that. And I feel good about sharing that. And that's always the place that I've wanted to be. And I think many people aspire to that. I come from a family where, we've got kind of like Arabic background, that kind of ethnic close ties and close family values run in my blood, in my family. And so for me, building wealth to then share abundance with family and with friends that I consider family, that's just a part of who I am. And I think many people who aspire to create wealth actually have that in the back of their mind, that they want to be able to share that. Now, plenty of people get caught up in the Lambos and all the fun stuff. And that's fun. Go do that. But also remember, okay, why did you actually get into this? And when you make that shift from, I've got heaps of money and I'm enjoying blowing it, to I'm supporting my community, I'm supporting my friends, I'm supporting my family, not giving up for me just to support them, but I'm supporting myself and I'm sharing from abundance as well. It's a really beautiful place to be.
Oh, beautiful, man. What a great way to
I just get excited for that level of like stresslessness, I want to call it, not stresslessness in terms of life's easy, because you, like you said, bigger money, bigger problems, bigger decisions, you need to be smarter for it. But yeah, that's, getting out of that, I got a parking ticket. Oh, I really don't need this right now, to be like, I just don't care. Like that's a real financial freedom piece there.
Before wrapping this up, like, what's next for Pete? Like, relationship, financially, with fit body. What's your thing, bro?
I've got a few bucket list items I haven't ticked off yet.
Cool.
I'd like to get an Ironman done, so
Nice.
that's on the list. I'm just slowly and easefully working towards that. I'm enjoying the fitness routine, especially with Brotherhood. It's a great place to be around community support, brotherhood, and to be also working out and working on myself and a positive tribe that are ambitious and also open to entrepreneurship. And that's been the most interesting thing being a part of Brotherhood for me, is like how into entrepreneurship everyone is. That's a really nice thing about this tribe, because there's no like lack mentality, or I haven't experienced any weirdness about what I do or what my goals or ambitions are around this group, which is pretty awesome.
You've probably got the opposite. You've probably got like intrigue.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, so that's the fitness goal. My intention this year was very, very simple. I wrote down, just as a curiosity, I wonder if I can earn net 7 figures from my businesses while traveling this year. So I'm just going to give that a go and see how I go. And I do a whole bunch of tricks to imprint things into my subconscious every day and make these kind of things happen. So I've got all the practical day-to-day stuff on making that happen. But yeah, we'll see how that one goes. And I'm just enjoying life, continuing to enjoy life.
Beautiful, bro.
Pretty wholesome intention,
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Awesome.
And I worked out my purpose not too long ago, and that purpose was, if I shine my brightest, I'm going to inspire others, and I'm going to have the greatest impact that I can on the world.
Yeah.
It's not in me to play small, and I had spent 5 years enjoying life, enjoying the mostly passive income from the businesses and living life the way I wanted to live. And I sat with myself and I said, well, I can just kind of do nothing for the next 30, 40 years and, be pretty comfortable. I was enjoying traveling and spending 6 days of the week basically on leisure time, which was fantastic, and racing cars and flying helicopters and doing all the fun things that I like to do. But what I realized was, well, if I double down into the business and continuing to grow this business that we have, and the primary business being IT Genius, I have a number of others as well. But if I continue to grow that business, let's say we grow it to a $100 million a year company, how many more people would we employ? That's good for the world. How many more customers would we serve? That's good for the world. How many more resources would I have for myself that I can then share with others that I care about and that I love about? Well, that would be good for me as well. So I'm going to go and do that. And, wouldn't it be exciting to list a company on the Australian Securities Exchange? Wouldn't it be exciting to grow a team with hundreds of employees rather than the 50 that we have now? What would it look like to have $100 million coming through the business? What kind of challenges would we be dealing with there? Probably $10 million challenges, which sound a bit scary at the moment, but I'm sure we'll get there. So we set those goals, and then I worked on the identity piece. Okay, well, what would it look like for me to be a $100 million man? What does that look like for Pete? Okay, well, I can see that that's like business or first class travel exclusively. I can see that that's, me having the kind of home that's on the beach and, my dream beach house, spend $15 million on a place that's either on Palm Beach or Mermaid Beach up here on the Gold Coast. Okay, tick that box. What does that look like? Okay, if I wanted to go down the family route, that looks like a family that, has abundance but not opulence. And so I kind of, mapped out what that looks like as well, a kind of integrated king archetype, with family, with friends, and with community around me. Yeah. And what does it look like, from a body and nutrition and health side of things as well? Well, that looks like I'm looking after my body. My body's going to take me through into my later years. It looks like me actually going and completing that Ironman because I know I have to be at a certain level of fitness to be able to actually get that done. And so, that's what I'm kind of mapping out for the future. And it's less about I want to earn X dollars per year by blah, 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 because I've done those goals. Now my goals are more intentions and experience, and they're a lot more rounded out outside of just the dollars. Because $100 million means nothing. One of the embodiment exercises that you can do is if you want to find that pendulum, right? If you've experienced, the lack of funds or the lack of wealth, and you really want to go and feel what that wealth is, go to some luxury watch shops, or go to some luxury, clothing shops. Go to the Gucci and the Prada, or Christian Louboutin, and go and try on their clothes. Go and try on their wares, what they're selling, and just see how that feels like in your body. See what stories come up about what kind of person goes and does that. Feel what it feels like to be in that shop, and imagine yourself buying something from that shop. Imagine yourself being the kind of person
that would
even
come,
now
who
I'm
could do
thinking
that.
like, I can't do that. I'd just be wasting their time. I don't have that type of, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
or other people shop there. All kinds of those things come up, and that's what I did before I bought the watch. I actually did it as an exercise to go in there. And one of my amazing teachers, Dr. John DiMartini, he used to walk around with $5,000 or $10,000 cash in his wallet. And he'd walk around the shops knowing that he could buy anything in any one of those shops, and just feeling the vibration of that much wealth on you, and feeling the abundance of having that much wealth in your pocket, not spending it, obviously, but just feeling that. And then it's kind of like, rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It's like, okay, well, I can feel what it feels like to have that much wealth on me and choose not to spend it. That's going to help you if you're the kind of person who is expanding your spending while you're expanding your income. But there's also the identity piece, which is important. You want to make sure that, okay, yes, I'm okay to earn the wealth. That's important. But you need to make sure that you don't have any of those subconscious stories running that it's only other people that shop at those shops. Because once you can break that down and you're okay to walk into one of those shops and buy those kind of brands, then it feels like, oh yeah, that could be me. I might not have that much money now. I may choose not to buy the $1,000 bag, but that's okay. Now, the big joke about all of that is that luxury brands are what middle-class people use to look rich.
You're so fucking right.
The actual wealthy don't wear those kind of brands. And even like something like this watch is a little bit silly. If you look at Musk and Gates and everyone else, it's those who want to appear wealthy that are spending the money. The true wealthy don't actually need that to be wealthy or to feel wealthy either. But it is worthwhile to go and buy yourself something from Gucci or something from Prada, or, when you can, because that is a good feeling to go and do it, only because of how many stories we hold about it. And once you've done it, you realize, oh, wow, I just spent $1,000 on a necklace. That's a bit dumb.
I could have done this with it.
But you get the experience of it, which is really great. And it collapses all those stories about who you are in relationship to wealth.
What a great practical tool to have people leave on. So, when you go into your next store and you're shopping for your Gucci, your Yamaha, or whatever, I don't even know brands, bro. I just wear Brotherhood. To go and do that and see what comes up in your body. I like what you said there, That's all we have.
It'll feel weird as fuck for the first 3 or 4 times that you do it, but just continue to do it, and then it becomes normalized.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I think definitely I'm going to give that a crack. I think it'll be awesome, mate. Just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on today. There has been no shortage of value throughout this. I know I definitely feel amazing. I know Guy definitely feels it too. Bro, Peter Moriarty, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to wish you bon voyage on your amazing trip around Australia that's embarking very soon, and with that said, I'm excited for this to launch so we can get back and listen to it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having us. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, brother. Cheers.
Woo.